Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I've put together a short video of specific lessons from Suzanne McDonald's Harp Olympics and Linda Wood-Rollo Harp Olympics preliminary round. So for anybody that wants to follow along, I'm going to go over a couple pages in this book, if you can hear me over my dogs. And would love to just have you follow along and enjoy. Let's take a look at, we are in the preliminary round of the Harp Olympics on page 26, and we're looking at example number 6. So we're in 4/4, and we're going to place our third finger, our middle finger on C, and we're going to place our thumb on G, just above the black string. Remember to do your technique checklist. Make sure that your arm is off the soundboard, your wrist is slightly bent inwards, it is not popped out. Your knuckles are nice and round. There's space in between your second and your thumb. And that when you play, you're nice and relaxed. Make sure that there's no tension. And we're gonna play, so if we're looking at number 6, first measure, 3 and 1. We have a bracket over the 3 and the 1, which means we're gonna place both fingers at the same time. We're gonna play our third finger, bring it all the way in. Then we're gonna play our thumb, close it all the way over, and come off the harp. And we can do a little bit of a raise. This exercise repeats the same figure 3 times. We're going to do that 3 times. So we've done it once, we're going to do it 2 more. 3, then 1. 3, 1, raise. And she says to play third finger by itself on the last measure, just on C. Make sure you close, bring all your fingers in, do a little bit of a raise, stay nice and relaxed. Number 7, if you take a look at number 7, the first measure, we're going to go up 1 string for both fingers. So our thumb is going to be on A, and our third finger is going to be on D. Now also remember, when you're doing your technique checklist, to keep the second finger, when you're not playing it, relaxed, just like the other 2 fingers, 4 and 5. So these fingers aren't going to be sticking out like this. There's no tension going on. They're nice and relaxed. This time we're going to go the opposite direction. So we're going to start with our thumb, bring it over all the way, and when you do this, make sure that you're not rotating your wrist in any way whatsoever. You're going to keep your hand nice and still. So play your thumb, close it, relax, make sure those knuckles are nice and round, play your third finger, bring it all the way in, close, relax, do a little bit of a raise, come back, and we'll do the same thing twice more. And then we end the last measure with our third finger on D. Now the beauty of these exercises and these videos is that you can pause, go back and watch it as much as you want to, so I'm just going to keep on going. Now we're looking at exercise number 8, still on page 26. So in exercise number 8, she says we're going to hold our thumb on G. So our thumb is on G, our third finger is on C. We're going to hold our thumb and only play our third finger in the first measure. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Then in the second measure, she says go ahead and play 1 and 3 together. We're going to raise, keeping all of our technique checklist items in mind. Raise. Play those again. Think about those fingers squeezing towards each other. They're kind of squeezing towards each other into the palms so that your fingers are coming this way, thumb is going over that way, and you're closing. Next measure, we're going to do the same thing, but we're going to go up 1 string, and we're going to have our third finger on D and our thumb on A. And when you're ready, hold your thumb and just play your third finger. Bring that third finger all the way in. Then we're going to do the next measure where we play both together. Think of that idea of squeezing those fingers together, squeezing those strings together. Then the next line, we're going to go back to C and G. So we're going to keep this interval of a fifth. We haven't talked about intervals yet, but that's all right. We'll get there. So keep that interval with our third finger on C and our thumb on G. Then we're going to go up 1 string, both fingers. Back down 1 string. Up. Down. Up. Down. Then in the last measure, it says we jump up just 1 octave to the C and the G. So we're playing the same 2 strings, Same two pitches, but an octave apart for those last two measures. If we're taking a look at exercise number 9, we are starting on the same two strings that we did for exercise number 8, third finger on middle C, thumb on G. Go through your technique checklist, make sure you're nice and relaxed, make sure that wrist is staying in, it's not popped out, make sure your fingers aren't necessarily pointing towards you, they aren't pointing down, somewhere in between. We have a nice space in between our thumb and our second finger. Nice round knuckles, relax the other fingers, they're not sticking up, there's no tension going on here. When you close, bring those fingers all the way in, not like this, not halfway. Close all the way in like this. So we're going to start with exercise number 9. Go up 1, go up 1, go up 1. Now we're on the third measure and we've ended at G and D. We're going to play that twice. Then we play the same two notes and we come all the way back down. Exercise number 10, it's written in the bass clef, so that means we're going to do the same exact thing with left hand, but an octave lower. So if right hand was on middle C, our left hand's going to be an octave lower on the C below that. Third finger on the C, thumb on the G, same thing. Closing, all of those fingers. If you look at exercise number 11, it says we're doing fifths in both hands. This whole page is discussing an interval of a fifth. So we've talked a little bit about, on the previous page, intervals of thirds. Now we're jumping to intervals of fifths. So the interval is essentially the space between two strings. I probably should have started the lesson out that way. But since this is kind of like a last-minute lesson video I'm doing for you online, we're starting with the interval of a fifth. So that means that if you start counting with your third finger on C, and that string is number 1, we're going to count 1 going up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and we're going to end on G. So that is our interval of a fifth. From C to G is an interval of a fifth. So it's just the distance between two notes. So exercise number 11 on page 26 at the bottom is the same exact thing. We're doing intervals of fifths. We're starting out with the left hand, so we have written both treble and bass clef. Left hand starts on C and G. Right hand is not going to play until the second measure, but we're going to go ahead and set it up anyway. We're going to be ready. So C and G together, then right hand, then left hand, then right hand. Now what we're going to do here is we're going to play left hand quarter note, right hand quarter note, and you'll see the next two notes have the letters LH, which stand for left hand, written underneath. So that means our left hand's going to jump over our right hand and grab those two notes that are higher. So we're going up another octave to the next C and G. The good thing about this exercise, all these notes are C and G. So if we're starting in that measure, the first measure where we have quarter notes, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, the fifth measure, we're going to play left hand, right hand, left hand. We're going to repeat. Left hand comes all the way back down. Do the same thing twice. Then we play right hand, left hand, right hand. And you may not have these notes on your harp, but we're going to go all the way down one more octave to the C and the G. So that is page 26. We're dealing with intervals of a fifth. Distance between two notes being the interval of a fifth. Page 27, if you look at the next page, it's going to discuss the muffle. So essentially the muffle is when we take our fingers and we place them on the strings and we stop the sound. There are several ways to muffle. We do not want to have our fingers splayed out like this. It doesn't look pretty. Some of aspects of the harp are very aesthetic, so we need to keep that in mind. Nice and uniform, nice and clean. So we're going to keep our fingers together. Your thumb, anywhere that you want to put it is fine. Some people put their thumbs here. I tend to have my thumbs up here. Just as long as they're relaxed and you keep your other fingers together. So the exercise essentially is just playing some C's on the harp and then practicing that muffle. So if we start at the beginning of that exercise on page 27, the left hand, which is indicated with the letter L, is on the C. With your second finger only, remember to keep those other fingers nice and relaxed. Your wrist is not popping out, your wrist is slightly bent inwards. Arm is off the soundboard. Knuckles are nice and round. They're not flat on the strings like this, but they're like that. Right hand's going to be set up on middle C, same thing. Every time we play, make sure to bring all those fingers in, close into the palm. Then you see in the right hand plays 2. Then we see on the next C, an L above that. Left hand jumps up and plays that L. Plays that C with your left hand. Right hand jumps up to the next C. Left hand plays the same C again. Right hand comes back to middle C. Left hand comes back to the C below that. Then, in the process, we're doing all these raising and playing of all the C's. Then we muffle the strings. So that is the exercise of the muffle. For the next video lesson, we're going to go ahead and work in the same book. So this is going to be the Harp Olympics preliminary round, and we're looking at page 29. So let's go ahead and open the book up to page 29, and we're going to take a look at this. So when we're talking about this, this bracket that sits above or under the notes, we've discussed this before, quite possibly. When we're discussing the bracket, the fingerings written in the bracket have to be placed on the harp before you play any of the notes. So if we're taking a look at page 29, exercise number 6, we have our third finger, the very first measure, third finger on C, second finger on D, thumb on E, and that bracket is sitting over those 3 fingers, which means that we have to have all 3 fingers on the strings before we play the first finger in that bracket. So let's go ahead and play this exercise. If you take a look ahead, glance ahead at the entire exercise, just that first line, you'll notice that we play the same 3 notes, same 3 fingers, 3 times. And there's a little bit of a raise in between. At the end of a bracket, we're going to come off the harp, we're going to do a little bit of a raise, we're going to come back, place those 3 fingers, and do the same thing. So let's go ahead and do this 3 times. Do our technique checklist, make sure your elbow's off the elbow is up, arm is off the soundboard, your fingers are nice and round, knuckles very nice and round. There's space in between your second finger and your thumb. Your fingers are not pointed down like this. Your fingers are not parallel to the ground like this, kind of somewhere in between. The other fingers that are not on the harp, nice and relaxed. No tension whatsoever. The only tension we're going to feel is the second we pluck that string. So we're going to do the first measure. We're going to do the whole line. 3, bring it all the way in. 2, bring it all the way in. Thumb, close, and do a little bit of a raise. Come back and do the same thing. In the last measure, second finger only on middle C, no other fingers are on the harp. We're going to pluck that string, and we're going to bring all of our fingers in. In the next line, we're on the same 3 strings, same 3 fingers, this time going the opposite direction, starting with our thumb. Then we end with our second finger on E, and do a little bit of a raise. And if you want to muffle, just like we learned in the last lesson, we can do that. Now we're going down to the second half of the page, exercise number 7. So if we go ahead and take a look at this, left hand thumb is going to start on middle C, where your third finger just was. So your thumb is going to go on that string, your second finger on the string below, your third finger on the string below that. So we're on C, B, and A. We're going to go start with our thumb first, pull it, close it all the way over, second finger, then third finger. Then we're going to end with our second finger, And the next line we're doing the exact same thing, but we're going the opposite direction. Same fingers, same strings. Starting with our third finger. 3, pull it all the way in, so it closes all the way in. And then our thumb, just like that. And then our second finger on A. And if you want to let it ring, you can. If you want to muffle, go ahead and practice that muffle. So that is page 29 of the preliminary round. And if you go ahead and turn to page 30, you'll see that we're starting to kind of integrate these exercises into, you could just say, a little song. It's titled More Workouts, but it's exercise number 8, so we're just using the same 3, 2, 1, 3, 2, 1, and then in the second line we're only using our second finger, and you'll notice in the last 2 measures of the second line that we have 2 muffles that we're using. So we play those strings, muffle, set up in place, play, muffle again. So I want you to go ahead and take a look at page 30, number 8, and number 9. And we can work on these pages for next time. Happy harping. Thanks.